The history of humanity cannot be told without speaking of faith, power, and war. For centuries, the sacred has been used as a spiritual refuge, but also as one of the most persuasive weapons of government and domination. Great leaders quickly understood that there is nothing stronger than an idea wrapped in eternity. When an emperor, a king, or a president manages to convince a people that their rule has divine backing, they do not only govern laws, they govern consciences. That is where a dangerous dance began between the altar and the throne, an alliance that would change the course of entire civilizations. One of the most revealing moments occurred with Constantine I, Roman emperor. According to the documents of Lactantius and Eusebius of Caesarea, before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Constantine claimed to have seen a luminous cross in the sky with the phrase, "In hoc signo vinces," with this sign you will conquer. The next day, he won. That event not only changed an empire, it changed the spiritual map of the world. Because from that moment on, Christianity stopped being a persecuted faith and became a political instrument. Spirituality, once clandestine, entered the palace and would never leave again. From there, the first structures of global religious power began to be born. The church no longer only baptized and comforted. It collected taxes, administered lands, authorized coronations. If you wanted to rule, you needed its blessing. Powerful kings such as Charlemagne, Isabella the Catholic, or Henry VIII knew that a throne without spiritual legitimacy was a building without foundations. That power reached unimaginable levels during the Crusades. From the year 1095, with the call of Pope Urban II in Clermont, thousands of knights, peasants, and even children left for the Holy Land convinced that they were serving God. They had never read a map, but they carried a promise: indulgences, salvation, and glory. That was not just a religious movement, it was a massive emotional and geopolitical phenomenon. An army marching by faith, but financed by gold. Religion, commerce, and power, dancing together once again. The average duration of the Crusades was almost 2 centuries. In that time, Europe discovered spices, silk, new trade routes, and also a new concept: war can be sacred. From there was born the idea of the divine right to conquer. What began as pilgrimage, ended as colonization. And in the midst of everything, genuine spirituality was trapped between speeches, swords, and coins. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, sultans, caliphs, and Muslim leaders were not far behind. Saladin, a legendary figure, a symbol of nobility and strategy, defended Jerusalem with religious fervor, but also with brilliant political vision. He himself said, "The land is not won only with steel, but with honor." War in the name of God was filled with poetry, ideology, romanticism, but it was still war. More than 2 million dead, according to calculations by modern historians. They died for faith, but also for borders. Time passed and faith continued to serve as a banner. During the colonization of America, religious standards accompanied expeditions as much as the sails of ships. The conquerors said, "We bring the cross and the sword." Sometimes it was true, sometimes it was the perfect excuse. Indigenous peoples were not only physically conquered, but emotionally. They were taught to believe that their gods were not sacred, that their worldview had no worth, that their history began the day others wrote it for them. And then came a new protagonist, the printing press. With it, religious discourse no longer depended only on the clergy. The Bible began to circulate in common hands. Martin Luther nailed his theses in Wittenberg in 1517, challenging the most powerful church in the world. It was not a war with swords, but with ideas. But ideas also ignite. What began as theological debate ended in religious wars that devastated Europe, such as the 30 Years' War. More than 8 million dead. Once again, faith, politics, and power speaking the same language. With the passing of the centuries, religions began to professionalize their influence. From theology to marketing, today's religious megastructures have television channels, public relations agencies, real estate companies, and international financial networks. They have political lobby. Some leaders do not present themselves as gurus, but as advisors to presidents. The pulpit, once a spiritual symbol, now lives beside microphones, cameras, and contracts. Today, according to studies by the Pew Research Center, more than 70% of the world's countries have some type of internal religious tension. And the most shocking fact, more than 40% of modern armed conflicts have religious factors involved, although they are masked under speeches of freedom, cultural identity, or national security. We do not always fight for God, but we always fight in His name. And yet, there is something fascinating. While institutions become more political, millions of people keep searching for something real, genuine, profound. They are not looking for marble temples, they are looking for answers. They don't want sermons, they want meaning. Personal spirituality is blooming like never before. It is not in cathedrals, it is in hearts. It doesn't live in rituals, it lives in consciousness and compassion. Today, many are realizing that the spiritual and the religious are not always the same. One is structure, the other, experience. One speaks of duty, the other, of connection. One relies on rules, the other, on kindness. Today we are witnessing a silent revolution, spiritual awakening without intermediaries. People who are deeply sensitive, empathetic, conscious, are learning to believe without belonging. Although that may soothe the mind and conscience of some, it does not give real peace in the long run because we are designed to seek, praise, and serve the true God. And here a powerful question arises. What if God was never the problem, but human translations of his message? What if faith was truly a language of love and not of war? What if genuine spirituality had nothing to do with flags, but with humanity? Perhaps, as Viktor Frankl said, meaning is not imposed, it is discovered. It is not dictated, it is lived. That is why, today, there is a new hunger. A hunger for peace, authenticity, real connection. People don't want to be told what to believe. They want to feel it. They want to understand why they love, why they suffer, why they feel so much. They want to heal. They want to live. They want to connect with something bigger, but not more violent, deeper, but not more rigid. Religions have darkened the path to God and people are very lost in stories of spirituality. And that is where you, we, must seek the truth because it exists. As Jesus said, keep searching and you will find. Let us not blame God. Let us search for him, let us study the Bible. We have a mission, to change the narrative, to remember that faith was not born to justify wars, but to worship God, find purpose and fulfillment in life, and sustain hearts. It was not created to divide peoples, but to unite souls. When religion speaks softly, it comforts the soul. But when it speaks loudly, governments listen. Some governments fear faith, not because it destroys, but because it awakens. When belief inspires courage, unity, loyalty, identity, it becomes something deeper than doctrine. It becomes purpose, and purpose cannot be controlled easily. In Iran, when women removed their hijabs in protest, they weren't rejecting God. Many of them whispered, "We still believe." But faith should be a choice, not a chain. They were not fighting religion. They were fighting for the right to feel God's presence freely, the desire that lives in every human heart, to seek peace, meaning, dignity, and spiritual truth. In China, underground gatherings are not simply secret meetings. They are quiet hearts searching for light. People risk their freedom, not for ritual, not for institution, but because there is a longing inside, a whisper we all carry, the desire and the need that God himself has placed in our hearts, to love him, to serve him, and to find peace, hope, joy, and purpose in that connection. That longing does not disappear under pressure. If anything, it grows. In France, the discussion is different. Faith is allowed, but not seen. In the name of secularism, religious symbols are restricted in schools and public spaces. The intention is unity, but many young people ask quietly, how can I hide something that gives me meaning? Because for many, God is not only a belief, he is the source of peace, the flame of hope, the reason they wake up each morning feeling that life has purpose. In Russia, religion walks beside political power. The sacred and the strategic often share a stage. Faith is visible, even celebrated, but only in certain forms, in certain places, in certain hands. It raises an unsettling question. When religion stands too close to power, does it risk losing its soul? Because the genuine search for God is not political. It is deeply human, intimate, and emotional. It flows from something planted in us since birth, a desire to find truth, to love what is good, and to feel that our life is held by something greater and safer than ourselves. Religion shapes laws, but laws also shape religion. Governments can approve practices, restrict symbols, regulate speeches. But there is one thing they cannot control: the human heart's desire to seek what is true, to love what is eternal, to belong to something greater than our pain. From ancient temples to modern cities, from underground gatherings to silent prayers at night, humanity has always searched for God. Not because we were forced, but because there is something inside that calls us gently, constantly. A need for peace, an ache for meaning, a longing to love and be loved at the deepest level. a desire to serve something pure, a dream that life is more than survival, that it has direction, soul, and purpose. So when governments try to control faith, they are not just managing religion. They are touching the deepest part of the human spirit. Because true faith does not come from institutions. It comes from the heart. When religion speaks softly, it comforts the soul. But when it speaks loudly, governments listen. In some countries, faith becomes a threat, not because it harms, but because it awakens. When belief inspires courage, unity, or resistance, it is no longer just spirituality, it becomes power. And power always attracts attention. In Iran, thousands of women removed their hijabs in public, not because they rejected faith, but because they rejected control. Their protest was not against God, it was against a system using God's name to silence them. Videos showed young women whispering, "I am not against religion. I am against oppression." The world watched. The state reacted. In China, religion exists, if the state allows it. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, they are not illegal, but they are regulated. Leaders are approved, sermons are monitored, Bibles are edited, crosses are removed from buildings. And yet, under the ground, in basements, in private homes, millions still gather. No microphones, no temples, no permission. They whisper, "We are not against the state. We are just searching for meaning." In France, the word is not control, it is secularism. In the name of national unity, religious symbols are banned in public schools. No hijabs, no crosses, no visible belonging. The idea is noble: protect freedom by keeping religion private. But some students quietly ask, if my faith is part of who I am, how can I separate it from my public life? In Russia, faith walks beside power, sometimes silently, sometimes proudly. Orthodox leaders appear in national ceremonies, bless new buildings, stand beside generals during speeches. Religion is not forbidden, it is embraced, but only one version, one voice. And people whisper, when religion stands too close to power, it stops being a refuge. It becomes a weapon. Religion shapes laws, but laws also shape religion. When faith becomes influential, politics wants to use it. When faith becomes dangerous, politics wants to restrict it. And when faith becomes too quiet, politics ignores it. But the truth is, faith has always lived in the space between. Between freedom and control, between devotion and fear, between silence and power. Faith can build schools, or burn them. It can heal hearts, or divide families. It can inspire revolutions, or justify oppression. Answer: we return to one essential question. When governments control faith, do they protect society? Or do they protect their own power? And when religion seeks power, does it still protect the soul? In every country, in every system, one question remains the same: is faith safer in the hands of governments? Or in the hearts of people? Maybe, true faith does not need permission. It only needs truth.